Hey guys, it's Tom from the AoStation here for episode 9 of the AoStation here at AoStation.com or at www.twitch.tv/the AoStation. We record this show live every Monday at 10 p.m. which Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And that's pretty much it for the intro. I'm here with my good friend, 7-Bit Brian from the Game Breaker forums. Say hi, 7-Bit.
Hi, internets. Hi, Panda Banana. I just killed a spider.
You just, during
Yes,
the
I'm
show.
not joking. Right at the beginning of the show, the spider just started crawling by, and I grabbed the box, and I was like, bam.
That
I,
is,
I, I don't know what that has to do with the show, but it happened.
I don't know, but it's incredible. That's a miracle. But in other news, we should get into it, I guess. So here we go. We have the Dota 2 news. There was a patch out this week, and no, it was not a Final Fantasy box. Sorry. And there isn't actually that
Eh,
much notable about the Dota 2 patch. A lot of bug fixes. They're still working on the game fundamentally. They're not really adding anything to the game. They're pretty much just porting over Dota 1 to the Dota 2 engine and making it stable. But there are two things that I'd like to comment on. First of all, they added Bane, the hero they added in the last patch, to Captain's Mode. And as I talked about in the last patch, Captain's Mode pretty much means that the hero is finished. It's in a very stable state because Captain's Mode is what's used for tournaments. So the heroes placed in a Captain's Mode pretty much have to be stable when they're added to the game. And and the second thing I want to talk about is, oh, excuse me, sorry. The second thing I want to talk about is that they fixed a bug that that allowed attributes to go below 1. And it's just a kind of a funny thing to talk about because that would imply that if you had negative strength, you could have negative health.
this is the topic that I find really interesting. This is the one I want to talk about.
Well, go ahead. What do you got to say?
I find it's a lot of people are saying this is just a crazy thing to miss, that it's even possible to, have a negative stat in a game. How could this have been in there in the first place? Like, how did they even happen? And you'd be surprised to learn how many game developers out there just slip up and let this kind of thing happen. And it really does go a long way to break a game. It's a game breaker. Haha. But an example I have is I play Evo Online, and in Evo Online there's wormholes, and the higher class wormhole you go into, it'll give you like negative stats to certain things, and if you stack that on top of a module you could use to give someone else negative stats, you could put yourself into a negative of a stat, but the game didn't know how to compute negatives, so it made it perfect. So you basically had a one-hit kill gun from any distance. So
That
it's
sounds
amazing
incredibly
the
OP.
things that, yes, they had to patch it out of the game. Obviously, it was a big deal. People got in trouble over it, but it's amazing that you would think that maybe since you're negative, you could have no health, so you would die. But the game might not know how to compute the negative, and might make you invincible. You just would not die.
That's bizarre. Never heard of
That's
that before.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, as a game, well, I'm kind of an amateur game designer. I made maps for Warcraft 3, which is the engine that Dota originally was made in. As a map maker, I have to say I've slipped up and missed these very. They seem really small, but they can really affect the game. So I can definitely see where they're coming from with this. I just thought it was kind of funny to add into the discussion. But really, there isn't that much news as for that in the Dota 2 world because, as I said, they're pretty much just porting things over from Dota 1. As you can see here, they fixed a bunch of glitches. They're changing around the UI a bit, and they're enhancing bot AI. So nothing really noteworthy. And on that note, we're going to go over to here, League of Legends news, which is there was a new
Lol.
patch. Yes, there was a new patch out that introduced Fiora, and we talked about her last episode. But we forgot to talk about the actual patch notes, the actual things that they changed in the game, as opposed to just adding her. And although you can see here that there's a lot of stuff, there really isn't that much that noteworthy stuff. Maybe a few numbers moved around a little bit, but we have
A f-
here the big stuff is they added line of sight to most of Lux's moves. And as you might already know, Lux is a hero that deals with light. So it makes sense that all her moves would uh, expose the light in the Fog of War. So that was a good addition to the game. It kind of seems almost like they should have done that in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like that kind of makes sense, but at least they're patching it in now. Um,
it's a big topic these days. Should have done it in the beginning.
Yeah, I see that kind of stuff with Star Wars: The Old Republic, where like they didn't have guild banks until 1.2. But really, as long as they do it eventually, or at least as long as they do it quickly, then it really isn't that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, when you think about it, there's a lot that goes into developing these games, and what we see as just a simple little thing is really easy. It is a simple little thing, so it's very easy to overlook it on top of everything else that you are doing.
Hmm.
So these things they might have should have been in at the beginning, but it's not really anything wrong. I mean, it's getting patched in, so
It's true, and I mean it's just line of sight, so it just makes like logical sense. Light abilities
yeah.
cause line of sight, but they also did some balance changes with Lux. They made it so Lucent Singularity now has a nerfed cooldown. They increased the cooldown from 9 seconds to 10 seconds, but they fixed it up a little bit um, so that the cooldown starts after you cast the first ability rather than when you detonate it. And how Lucent Singularity works, if you haven't used it before, is she shoots an orb of light out to an area of effect. It stays there and slows people, and then she can detonate it for damage. So now the cooldown starts once she's cast it instead of when she detonates it, so that you're not penalized for leaving it out on the field. But overall, it's a nerf. If you simply throw it out and explode it automatically, it's a nerf technically. Um, and they also did some major changes to Olaf. What they did with his ultimate was it used to do just a flat damage reduction, but instead of doing that, they made it give you magic resist and armor, which technically do the same thing. Like they technically do negate damage, of course, but I think the reason they did this is so that if you lower his armor and magic resist, it affects his ultimate instead of it simply being a buff that you can't really affect. I don't know whether this is necessarily a nerf or a buff because I don't really know how magic resist and armor scale compared to flat damage reduction, but it's definitely an interesting way to change the hero around. Um, and they buffed his, or I don't know if it's really a buff. A lot of these are buffs and nerfs at the same time, kind of just changing the abilities around. But they changed his axe throw, which I think is called low tide or rip tide or something like that. And they increased the damage and they increased the attack damage scaling on the ability. Um, but what they did is they reduced the cooldown reduction that you get for going and picking up your axe. So you'll get less benefit from kiting or from chasing people, I guess, but you'll overall be doing more damage. So it's a better nuke, but it's a less good chasing. It's less good at chasing people. Excuse me. Anything to say about that,
Makes
Brian?
sense. It makes sense to me, and that's something I've always found very interesting about the AOS or Dota or whatever you want to call it genre is when you're nerfing or buffing these heroes, champions, whatever you want to call them, in this, it's a lot of it affects items also because the items you choose in the game can really change your playstyle. So when they change how a hero is affected by these items like they did here, it really can change the hero completely how he plays. This rewrite everything. And
Yep.
it's not doing that here, but it is making it so that this hero, depending on how it scales with magic, like you said, might not want certain items that it used to be, he wanted, period. If you picked him, you got these items. Now, you might be able to go for something else.
That's true, actually. I didn't actually think about that until you just said it. But having it give you magic resist and armor instead of flat reduction is if the magic resist and armor doesn't scale very well with items. Like if you have enough magic resist and you add, say, 20 magic resist to it, it has less of an effect than if it's an entirely different stat, which the flat damage reduction was. Maybe now, since it's armor and magic resist, you'll want to build less tanky because the tanky items will have less of an effect. Maybe you want to build
Exactly.
more of
That's
a DPS build. That's actually quite interesting.
that's
I
what I
didn't
was
think
thinking.
about that. Well, thank you. um, and they also nerfed Zig's mines, and he was one of the excuse me, he was one of the new champions that they brought out a couple weeks ago, where he threw bombs around. And what they found out was that when he placed his mines, they dealt so much damage initially, and they had so much slow initially that people were using it more as a nuke than as a like an area denial ability or as a trap. People were literally just placing them on top of someone and dealing a crazy amount of damage, and they needed to nerf that, and I'm glad that they did. Um, but as for that, they're really just, tiny small changes, some graphical changes. One thing that I did notice they were doing is they were taking a lot of abilities, passive abilities that have cooldowns, and adding a visual cooldown timer to them, which is an interesting addition for their user interface. Um, and on that note, I guess we're going to go over to Heroes of Newerth news. And it seems like it's a pretty common theme, but there isn't actually that much to talk about. Last week, we talked about how Kinesis was coming out and they had the 100 hero event, but we actually have the news on Kinesis since for some reason S2 thinks it's a good idea to release spotlights right after we do the show. Um, we finally have news on Kinesis and what his abilities do instead of just my speculation, and I was wrong. The second version of Kinesis wasn't an ultimate transformation form or anything. It simply is all Avatar. I totally messed that up. And yes, I do think they're jerks for doing that. Here you can see on the screen right now, here are the free heroes list. There really isn't that much to talk about, except that there's more carries on it than there are other kind of characters, which I find kind of interesting. I don't know whether they're doing that on purpose, giving all the free players carries or not, but it might end up messing up the game for them because they'll get so used to playing carries that they might not be able to play other classes. As you can see here, they have Monkey King, who's a ganker slash carry, Emerald Warden carry, Nomad carry, Blood Hunter. He's a carry in low level games, so in this case, most free to play players will be low level, or low rank, excuse me. He could be considered a carry. Forsaken Arch is a carry. Most of these people are carries, and the ones that aren't carries are support. So you won't be getting many initiators, except for Magmus, excuse me, in this and Legionnaire. But it seems to be kind of skewed towards the carries. So I'm wondering if that's a on purpose, whether they're doing that on purpose, or whether that's just a coincidence. But either way, it's going to affect how people play for this week in the free-to-play pool. Um, and as you can see here, they released Kinesis. We will go over his abilities in a minute, but first we're going to go over these patch notes. And there really isn't that much to say. As you can see, there's really not that much text here, and most of it's just patch fixes. Like right here it says Draconis fixed passive effects from playing while sheeped. That's not really interesting. It's definitely something they needed to do, but nothing we really need to talk about. But one other thing you might be interested in is they released a alt avatar for Voodoo Jester, who is one of my favorite heroes in both Dota and Heroes of Newerth, because he's one of those support heroes who can be really good support. He has a heal, he has a guaranteed stun, he has a really good ultimate, but he can also be played almost as a carry. He's one of those characters who, with the right items, can really dominate. So I really do like playing him, and I'm glad that they finally gave him an alt avatar. If I haven't seen it yet, I will go check it out in the store later on, but for now, you can just check them out on their website. And that's really it for the news in Heroes of Newerth, except we're going to go over Kinesis specifically. And right here, although the text is really ugly, it gives a very specific details on what his skills do. Right here you can see his stats. He's obviously an int character, so he has very high int and very high int gain. But what I find interesting is that his strength and agility, as well as their level up gains, are pretty much the same. So he's not really, skewed tanky or agility either way. So he seems to be like an all-around kind of int carry. Well, not carry specifically, but an int character. His attack range is 600, which is pretty much standard for a ranged character these days. They actually went in Heroes of Newerth and took all the ranged characters that had really low range, like 400, and buffed them so that they could compete with other ranged characters. And I'm not really into stats into like I'm not really competitive, so I don't look at these stats and go, "Oh, well this, +1 to agility really affects the metagame." I just those are things. He doesn't really seem to have very high base attack damage, but as I said, that's kind of par for the course when it comes to agility intelligence characters. His first ability is Stasis Smash, which is when he lifts up a character and they stay in the air for a short amount of time and then they fall to the ground, dealing damage and stunning enemies in an area. So this is both a nuke and a CC ability. I believe it can be used on allies. It doesn't say, but I think it can be used on allies. So you could use it as kind of a defensive thing. Lift your friend up in the air so they can't take damage, and then he'll fall to the ground, dealing damage to his enemies. Um, which is actually what I predicted last episode. But his second ability is telekinetic control, which is where he lifts up. Jesus Christ! Excuse me. where he lifts up a character or a tree, which is it's actually the nearest tree or creep into the air, and then with his secondary ability, he can throw them at a target, which deals magic damage and slows. Um, I don't know why it keeps showing different versions of the ability, but whatever. His third ability, I hear from Noah, our other guest host, who couldn't get on the show today, is incredibly overpowered. And I will tell you what it does in a second. What it does is it gives Kinesis a shield that absorbs incoming damage, but the health that the shield has is equal to a percent of the damage you deal, which is pre-mitigation damage. So if you hit a guy for an 800 damage nuke, it doesn't matter if they technically take 800 damage through mitigation. You'll gain a percentage, which is actually 50% at max level. You'll gain, if you hit them with an 800 damage nuke, you'll gain 400 damage, a 400 health shield.
Yeah, the way they described it on the patch notes was it's not damage done, it's damage attempted. So if, you know, you shoot at them and you do, like you said, it would have hit for 800, but you only did 400, you're still going to get that full 800 effects, so you're getting that half of that V400 damage shield instead of a 200.
Yeah, and what I heard from Noah is that it actually works with items. So if you get an item like Mock of Brilliance or Radiance in Dota, or I think it's called Sunfire Cape in League of Legends, you'll deal AoE damage around you per second, and you can just run into a group of enemies and you'll be constantly getting that shield for a insane amount. So I don't really know how this is going to affect the hero. He's only been out for a week, even less than actually. I think he came out last Friday, but it seems insane.
When we get into talking about his ultimate, that could do a lot of attempted damage right there, and that's a lot of shield.
Exactly, and well, I guess we can do that right now. We go over to his fourth ability, which is his ultimate, and you target a area, and you lift up. At level 1, you lift up 3. At level 2, you lift up 5. And at level 3, you lift up 7 creeps and trees in the area for 8 seconds. And, well, you activate the ability again to launch all of the creeps and trees at the target area, dealing AoE damage. So you can literally just walk into a forest or a group of enemies and pick them all up and just toss them all at one area.
Yeah, if you run into a another hero or champion trying to push and he's with his creeps, you can just neutralize his creeps and nuke him right there in one move, and it gives you a big shield. And then you've also got your secondary ability where you can lift him up and CC him and then do even more damage. I think once you stack items with this guy, he's gonna be a lot like a carry, and that in game, late game, whatever you want to call it, he's going to do a lot of damage.
Hmm. And that it's just insane, really. I don't know how they're going to balance him. He looks really cool. I like the idea of telekinesis picking things up, but he looks like he's, especially with that defense ability, that excuse me, what's it called? Inherent defense. It just seems crazy. It seems crazy.
Now, would you consider that a passive?
Yeah, it says passive right here.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So you were talking about in the previous episode about how passives on some heroes in some games are basically useless. They don't like. They're not. How do I explain this? They're not.
Vital to the hero.
Yeah, they're not vital to the hero. They don't really play into how the character plays. This would. I think it's OP, and they should tone it down a little bit. You shouldn't get like 50%. Maybe you should
50%.
get like 25% or 20%. But it would actually really play into how this character would work, because he wouldn't be afraid of wading into a whole group, because he could use his ultimate, take out half of them, and have the damage reduction to get away from the other half. So he could stop pushing pretty good.
Well, I guess that's one good thing about the ability, is that you have to actually do something to get it. Like, you actually have to do damage. So if you, like, portal key into a group of enemies, you're vulnerable until you start dealing that damage. But once you do that, I don't know what could stop him, really. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's really cool. Once the numbers are figured out, and I'm sure they will be eventually, he seems to be, like, a really good addition to the game overall. But on that note, that's pretty much it for Kinesis, and that's pretty much it for Heroes of Newerth, League of Legends, and Dota 2 news. Unfortunately, there wasn't actually any news in the Bloodline Champions front. There was a couple...
I played a game today.
You played a game today, and we won. We dominated.
My first ever Bloodlines Champions game. I like the genre, but I have not played every game. I haven't played Heroes of Newerth. It's downloading right now. Actually, I put it on pause so I could do this. But yeah, I know, I'm bad.
No.
But I'm playing
them. You're not bad. We won our first match in Bloodline Champions, a 3v3 matchmaking match. We won, so you're not bad by any means. Trust me. I don't know how to segue this. I guess to talking about bad, we have a viewer question, which I'm very surprised, but thank you very much. Our viewer question comes from a viewer named Legendary3437, I do believe his name is, and his question goes something like this. Why do we not see more maps in the AoS games? They can't be hard to balance. And I think they could add more depth to the game, each match having the possibility of being on a different map. Well, this is actually a very interesting topic. It kind of comes into the whole, like, psychology of the game, because there are actually other maps when it comes to AoS. In Dota 1, there wasn't, because that was just the limit of the Dota engine. Or the Warcraft 3 engine, excuse me, because the map was literally the game. The programming went with the map, and you couldn't really, I mean, you could technically separate them, but you would kind of have to rebuild the whole terrain, and the whole stuff all itself. But that's just me rambling. And in the other games where that is possible, there are actually other maps. Say for Heroes of Newerth, there is Grimm's Crossing, there's Watchtower, and there's the normal Forest of, excuse me, the normal Dota map. But the problem with all of those is that they aren't simply different 5v5 maps. There's the 5v5 map, there's the 3v3 map, I believe there's a 4v4 map in Heroes of Newerth. And if you could take League of Legends for the same example, there's the normal 5v5 map, Summoner's Rift, there's the 3v3 map, Twisted Tree Line, and there's the, how many players is Dominion, do you know? Chat room, do you know how many players there are for Dominion? I believe it's like 5 or 4.
Yeah, I think it's 5v5 also.
Okay, it's 5v5.
But that's what I got out of this question too, is the guy he's not asking about different maps per se, because we do have, like you said, 3 maps on one and 3 maps on the other. It's just you play that map for that game type, period. There isn't different maps for that game type.
Yeah.
And I've wondered that before too, because the AoS genre started because of modding, okay? I'm a big supporter of modding. I love it. Counter-Strike for the win.
Woo!
But you don't see any mod capabilities in any of these MOBA, Dota, whatever games that are coming out. You'd think, they would pay homage to their roots and give the ability to mod their game, give map making, make it casual mode, where you just gotta invite friends to play it. Maybe even come up with a hero maker, I don't know. But if you did this, I think you could actually get some good stuff out of it, and you might be able to come up with more than one 5v5 map, or 3v3 map, or Dominion, whatever you want to call it. You could probably come up, if your team can't come up with it, there's someone out there that can come up with a really interesting map that could be balanced. I'd like to see it myself. I'd like to see more maps. I don't want, if I'm doing 5v5, I don't want to play the same thing over and over and over and over. It does get old after a while, and I got to turn it off and try something else.
Well, I have 2 points to say about that. First of all, you're a genius. But that's not the whole point. S2,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. S2 the makers of Heroes of Newerth, actually did release their game with a map editor,
I
which
did not know that.
which is where the entire genres from, that's where a lot of the competitive stuff from StarCraft 1 came from. People would make cool maps and play on them. Um, that's where the entire AOS genre came from in Warcraft and in StarCraft 1 is the modding community. And I am surprised as well as you that not more companies like Valve and Blizzard even and S2 and Riot kind of took this on themselves and made their own map editor. But S2 did. The only problem is all it can do is edit maps. Um, and I don't really know the whole system. I've played Heroes of Newerth since beta, and I haven't seen any, custom-made maps in the matchmaking pool, or I haven't seen that many. Actually, I've never seen a custom-made map in the custom game section of Heroes of Newerth. I know it's technically possible to change the terrain around in their map editor, but I don't know if you can release it. I don't know if you can play on it, and I know damn sure you can't program anything into it. Like, you're not going to be creating new game types or new genres even. It's simply just a terrain tool. And that's one thing that S2 could blow all the other games out of the water if they did this. All you have to do is create a really good map editor. A map editor where you can place units, change unit fields, like change their health, all their damage, their name, that kind of stuff, what their model looks like, change the terrain, and be able to do some sort of rudimentary programming, because that's where the whole genre came from. And I think if an AOS came out today with a good map editor, they could just destroy the competition.
Yeah,
And go on. That's all right.
yeah. I was gonna say, even if you give them like a simple like square and some stuff to put in it, and you make your map out of that, even very simple map editors are hugely popular. I mean, look at like games like Halo with its Forge mode when it came out. There were so many different game types and map conversions that came out of that thing. It was hugely popular. So even if you gave them the base map and just let them edit it some, like edit the lanes, edit the paths, edit the creeps, all that kind of stuff, it would still be hugely popular. It wouldn't be as much as I'd like, but it would still be amazing.
I totally agree with you. And as I said, S2 does have a map editor that can do that, but I don't know if you can release the games or not. I don't really know. It definitely
I
hasn't
have to
made
look
that
into
big.
that.
Exactly, it definitely hasn't made that big of an impact on the community as it should have. But my second note is, well, I guess I have three now. My new second note on the subject is, even if they did have something like this, there's definitely something psychological about this Dota map, because there is a reason why Dota 1 uses it, Dota 2 uses it, Heroes of Newerth uses it, and League of Legends uses something really similar. There's a reason why you have two bases right here and you have three lanes connecting them and a river in the middle. It just works. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't deviate from that. I definitely don't, but I am saying that there might be some pushback from the community if they did change it up a bit. But I think the way to fix all of this is, first of all, do what you said, make a map editor that you can do stuff like that, and then do what StarCraft 2 is doing, or I guess StarCraft 1 did it as well, but adopt the really good community maps and put them into the matchmaking cycle. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Make a grading system, so when I go play on these maps, I can grade it. I can say, okay, I like this one, it's really good. Okay, this one sucks, don't play it. And the ones that are really up there that everybody likes playing on, you take a look at them. If you think they're good, maybe they need a little tweaking, whatever. Do what you need to do, and then publish it. And then that's profit. I don't know.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And I had a third one. I swear I did, but I can't think of it right now. And they would have to I guess they would have to create new matchmaking brackets, because then you'd have the 5v5 bracket, the 3v3 bracket with those map cycles in them. And if you had different game modes entirely, like Dominion, you'd have to have a new bracket for that as well. So it would definitely be difficult, but as I said before, whichever company, Valve, Blizzard, Riot Games, or S2, whichever one comes out with a map editor, I'm going to flock to, because I've loved doing this stuff.
Just gonna put in my
You- Oh,
tinfoil hat.
oh my God.
Tinfoil
Oh
hat.
my, I don't have one. I guess
I'm gonna put in my tinfoil hat version of
some
my
moccasin
prediction.
count.
If anybody does this, my prediction it will be Valve because Valve's just crazy. I mean, they're making their own console. Is there
Yeah.
anything Valve doesn't do?
The Hammer editor is great. So if Valve actually does make an editor for Dota 2, I'm on that totally. And I
Oh
do
yeah.
remember my other point. My other point actually goes back a little bit to the Warcraft 3 community, which I was a big part of. Um, Part of the reason why the Warcraft 3 community kind of died off and kind of went their separate ways is because when Warcraft 3 came out, well, no, excuse me, well, we obviously all played Warcraft 3, but at the end of Warcraft 3's life cycle, games like League of Legends and Heroes of Newerth all came out. And a lot of our players went over to those games because they had shiny new graphics. But what happened was StarCraft 2 came out, and that was kind of like our holy grail. We were like, oh my god, we're going to get a new map editor. We're going to go ape on this and make some crazy games. And it turns out that the StarCraft 2 map editor just wasn't very good. I mean, it's really in depth, and you could do a lot of cool stuff, but it was just I don't actually know because I'm not a very complicated map editor. I did some very simple stuff, but the people that I talked to, like the creators of Tides of Blood and the creators of Advent of the Zenith, which were my two favorite games in Warcraft, they totally just stopped working on StarCraft 2 maps because for some reason they didn't like the editor. So, as I said, if another one of these companies creates a really good editor, all of those people who stopped playing after StarCraft 2 came out will just flock to you. And that's
Okay.
my last point on the subject.
Dota 2 Steam Workshop. It
Bam!
fits together.
Bingo!
Cohesive.
That's
Cohesive.
perfect.
Fits right together.
That's amazing.
Make it happen, Steam.
Oh my god. Gabe Newell, let's get that guy on the phone. I don't have a phone, but I have an inhaler. I will call him on my inhaler just a moment. Or even better, on my DS. I'll call him on my DS. Let's
I
see.
have my Android that's been ringing for like 3 calls now. I put it on silent because, during the show. But
Okay, well, that was a good. Thank you so much, Legendary. We appreciate you sending in your viewer question. But
thank you for the question.
yes, we also just got a viewer question from the chat room. I appreciate this as well.
Yay, live chat.
Woo! Live chat. You should come watch us on Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern. But our question comes from Crime Endorsement, who is also a guy from the Game Breaker forums. But his question is, should the viability of an AOS game be based more on popularity than solid gameplay for esports? Oh my god. Crime, why did you have to do it?
Wow.
Okay, I guess
Uh,
we're already 38 minutes in. We might as well go for another hour. Um,
an hour? That's all you got?
no, I could go on about this subject for years. Um, and I already did a lot of I talked a lot about this on AoStation.com, which you can go check out because a lot of this has to do with League of Legends, or at least what I think about the game. But it's good because we have you on the show, so you can shut me up. Um, in my opinion, it's all about the solid gameplay. I mean, definitely having popularity helps because you'll get the viewers and the sponsorships and all of that kind of stuff. But if you stop looking at like the StarCraft 2 community, which is insanely popular, and you start looking at the fighting game community, which isn't as popular, it's kind of like baby esports. Um, they've had a long history, but they haven't had many viewers. Recently, they're getting a lot of sponsorships and they're getting a lot of viewers, but nothing like League of Legends and StarCraft 2. But that's kind of because of the abrasiveness of the community and the level of difficulty. It's pretty hard to fight Daigo Umahara in Street Fighter 4 because he will ream you and kill you. He will murder you on the spot, and you'll have no chance. Um, I'm sorry, I'm totally nerding out here. But if you look at them, all of their games that have succeeded in the competitive realm that are now becoming esports had solid gameplay. They were really solid games. And if you look at the ones that weren't solid, they died. No one's playing them for a reason. Um, and I think that's kind of reflective of what I'm trying to say is that with solid gameplay, popularity will come. You know what I mean? Like if you start off with popularity and you have a crappy game, you're not gonna have much of a life cycle. If you start off with solid gameplay, no matter how small you start off, you will gain popularity because the pro players will be there to support you the entire way. What do you think about this, Mr. 7-Bit Brian?
I can agree, but at the same time, I can disagree. I don't know how to explain it. See, I view the word esport the same way as I view MMO. What does it even mean? Everybody has a differing opinion on what it takes to be considered a MMO or what it takes to be considered a esport. Everybody has their own differing opinion on, what parameters have to be met, what kind of polish has to be in the game, what kind of, if it's a AOS type genre game, it has to have this stuff, or it's just an AOS and not an AOS esport. So everybody's going to have their own opinion on that, but you can't rule out popularity when it comes to any sport. I mean, football is football. It hasn't changed much. I mean, there's been minor rule changes. It's a solid game though, but the reason it's such a big sport is because everybody loves it. It's very, very popular. Soccer's the same way. The original football, I love them both. I'm not trying to
The real
make
football.
yeah, the real football. I like them both. But these sports, they might be a viable sport even without the popularity, but they're not as big of a sport without that popularity. So you need the solidarity, you need the solid gameplay, but you also need the popularity. So you have to work on both. I agree with you that if you have a solid game and you work on it, it will grow in popularity. And I also agree that if you like overhype a game and it's crap, you don't have the solid gameplay, it is going to degrade over time. So I don't think it's a one or the other. You have to have both. If
Okay.
even if you have a solid game, you don't promote it, you don't put it out there, you don't try just because it's a solid game, it's not going to succeed. You need to put it out there and make it succeed also. You need to make it popular.
I agree. I would like to also add a little thing, which kind of relates to MMOs. As you might already know, it was discussed a lot on the Game Breaker TV shows, where they say a lot of stuff about if you don't please the end game raiders, it's gonna have a trickle down effect. When someone starts playing an MMO, they don't go, "Oh yeah, I really want to grind to level 10." They go, "I want to go kill that giant dragon." And so that's what they do. Their incentive, even though they might not actually reach endgame, is they want to get to endgame. And I think that kind of is similar in the competitive esports thing. People that watch esports look at these players and go, "Wow, these players are amazing. I really want to be as good as them." And in a case like League of Legends, for example, you might have a lot of players, but only a few hardcore players, like a few really competitive players. Um, and the game might really be a good casual game. It might be really fun. It might be easy to pick up and play. It might be easy to understand. But if you don't have the hardcore competitive community, it's not going to go anywhere because people aren't going to pick it up and go, "Wow, look at, for example, Slayer's Boxer. I really want to be like Slayer's Boxer." And if Slayer's Boxer's not there, you're going to lose out on a lot of that kind of stuff. If you don't start off with a hardcore community, I don't think you can be a competitive esport.
So wait, what you're telling me is if we get people that are really popular, we have fans wanting to be like them. I want to be like Mike. So what you're telling me is in a few years we're going to have a League of Legends player on a Wheaties box?
I'm not saying that as much as what I'm
I'm
trying to
just
what I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say is okay. I'm gonna offend a few people here, but in my opinion, I don't consider League of Legends a competitive esport, and that's simply because its gameplay mechanics really I don't want to say pander, but they help people who aren't very good at the game. Whereas Dota, for example, is notorious for having a ginormous learning curve. You start off playing Dota, and if you don't have dedicated friends that are playing it, you will stop because you will get dominated and just destroyed forever. And that was way back before we had matchmaking. Everything was a public game without matchmaking, so it was really hard to get into the Dota scene. A game like League of Legends is very easy to get into. You can start playing, you can start getting really good. It's going to be fun, but I'm starting to lose where I'm at. But you can start playing and you start getting good. But if the hardcore, like, the really competitive players aren't in the game because of certain gameplay mechanics, then you're not going to get those people that really want to be like them. And as I'm looking at the community, I don't see a lot of the really hardcore competitive AOS players picking up League of Legends.
I can see where you're coming from with that, but I do have to disagree again. I could see more as not that it's not an esport or it shouldn't be considered one, maybe that it's on a different level. For comparison, let's go back to football. Okay, high school football nowhere near as popular, obviously, so the popularity is like flipped here. I don't know, but that's a sport. That is a competitive sport. So is college ball. So is NFL. NFL obviously being the most popular, but they all are considered competitive esports and should be taken just as seriously by the people that participate in them, in my opinion. So maybe League of Legends isn't on the same level of an esport as Dota 2. Maybe Dota 2 is the NFL and League of Legends is like the college ball, but it's still an esport as I view it. It just maybe not as big. And in the gaming universe, it seems like the more elite you get, the less popular it is. But in the like real life universe, football, the more elite you get, the more popular it is. I don't know why that is right now. Maybe it's just because esports are so young,
Yeah, it's probably because
but
we don't have a Super Bowl.
it's probably going to happen. So right now, you have the lower tier being more popular because it's so easy to get into. I will agree on that. I like League of Legends. It helps me get into the genre. So maybe it's more popular because of that. It's getting people into the genre, and then as it grows, those more hardcore or upper tier games are going to become more popular as people grow into the whole esports thing.
Well, I agree with you to a large extent, but I just want to get it out there that for everybody that might have been offended by that, I don't hate League of Legends by any means. I like League of Legends. I like League of Legends a lot, but
You asked me to play it today.
exactly. I've been playing League of Legends a lot with some of the people that are in the chat room right now, but I just have fundamental problems with some of the mechanics, and I really want to see the game prosper. I mean, not like it's not prospering. It's one of the most popular video games ever, 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 ever. So, really, what I'm trying to say is I hope that it can become um, I hope that it can refine its mechanics so that the super hardcore community can pick it up. Because they already have everyone and their mother. They might as well have the competitive players as well. I don't really know what that would gain in the game, but I really want to see it get better. So I'm just pointing out the things that I generally dislike about it in the
It's
hopes that it'll change.
it's not just criticism, it's constructive criticism. He
I
wants to
hope
see
so.
it become more. And I agree. I'd love to see it become more, and I'd love to see those hardcore people like you say come more to League of Legends because it's so popular. It will spread the popularity of esports more and these hardcore gamers, and it'll grow the genre more. If we keep everybody segregated, where this is the hardcore players are only ever playing this game, and everybody
Mm,
else is always playing this game, you don't have much room for growth there.
mm,
You need the whole community together. So I agree. We need every game needs work. No game is perfect.
hmm Well,
But
um,
yes, it's an esport, in my
yeah.
opinion. In my
Okay,
opinion.
yeah, okay, okay. Well, nothing I say will make it not an esport, because it's already an esport. It's the most popular AOS ever, and they have $1 million tournaments. Nothing I
Like
say
I,
will stop that. You know what I
like I
mean?
said, the word is totally up for interpretation anyways. So
And the bird is the word. So right there. I have 2 points to make. First of all, you were saying that the community needs to kind of get together, and all these games do need work, but we should all kind of we are really segregated in the AOS community. We are very separate. There's the
it's
dedicated
most
Dota.
gaming.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It's all right. There's dedicated Dota 2 players, and then there's Dota 1 players who haven't gotten into Dota 2, and then there's the super hardcore Chinese crowd who completely reject Dota 2 because it uh, has a better engine. They're so used to how bad the Warcraft 3 engine was that they still play Dota 1, which I can respect.
Rose-colored glasses.
Well, that too. Um, then there's the people like me who don't play any of them and want to play these really obscure games that no one's ever heard of and no one plays just because I hate myself. Um, Then there's the League of Legends crowd who might not necessarily have been it for, been into the genre. It might be it's almost like a gateway drug. A lot of people that never played it before started playing it. But there are actually hardcore people that play it. Some of my friends who have been playing Warcraft for years, 10 years now, are playing League of Legends dedicatedly because they like the game a lot more. And then Heroes of Newerth. Oh god. I'm sorry, S2, but you have the worst community ever. You have a ocean of trolls as your community. But I hope that with what we do on the show and on the website, I hope that we can help get us all together. I know, as cheesy as that sounds, I really do hope that we can kind of bridge the gap, because what we're trying to do here is show you what's going on in each of these games and how similar they are. Like we are pretty much all playing the same type of game, unless you play Bloodline Champions, which is very
All
different.
skill shot.
It's a very interesting game. You should go check that out. But I guess my second point would be that um, that I don't have a second point. I totally forgot. But that's good. Thank you so much for your question, Crime, because
Yeah, I don't think that really answers it at all, but
it doesn't at all.
is there an answer?
There really isn't. But I would agree with you that you need both popularity and solid gameplay. But I think without either, you're screwed. You're not going to get anywhere if no one plays your game, but you're also not going to get anywhere if your game is just fundamentally flawed. And yes, $1 million, Peggle could become an esport. That's another thing. It's really difficult to even talk about League of Legends as not being an esport because Riot Games is throwing so much money at it. They're just have money, play our game, have money, and that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing for esports because it makes players go, "Wow, I should really not necessarily I should go play League of Legends, but like I can really do this and make money," which is a really good thing for players because that gives incentive and more people do it, and etc. etc. etc.
Oh,
Um,
it's just the genre, or the whole esports crowd finally taking a cue from real sports. You know, we have to pay our players. Whoever owns the team pays the players. They have to own that stadium, the upkeep, pay for all the food that they sell and everything. So you have to put money into it for it to become something big enough to start making money. So this is just the esport scene finally, taking that cue and saying, yeah, we got to do that.
hmm.
And Riot's not the only company doing it, but they're certainly the biggest right now. And I'm very excited to see what goes on with other esports communities with more developers and publishers putting money into it. Like we have the fighting game community. Capcom is putting money into it now. They do their own little reality TV show online.
Cross
That's
Assault.
something new. You have Guild Wars 2 coming out, where ArenaNet has said they will be hosting esports events themselves and putting prize money into it, big, huge events themselves. They're putting that money into it right up front. They're making that game a part of that game, an aspect of that game, just to be an esport. That's in there from the start.
Mm.
We have a lot of people looking in, so the genre is going to grow.
It definitely will. That's for damn sure. Especially with games like League of Legends. That game has brought so many people to the genre, and I can't talk crap about it because of that fact. Like even if it was like a dead rat in a box, the fact that it's brought so many players to the genre is a great thing. And I'm not saying it is a dead rat in the box. That's just a horrible analogy. But I think the thing you forgot to say about that was Valve, because Valve has actually put, Jesus Christ, they put what, $1 million for the grand prize of a tournament in a game that wasn't even an open beta. That's ridiculous.
Valve's always crazy. I mean, they're making a controller where you can pull pieces off of it and switch it. Like you can pull the thumbstick out and switch it with a trackball and use that, and the controller recognizes it. And they're making their own console, and they're making like every game be moddable through their Steam Workshop. Valve's just freaking off the wall crazy. I love them.
They're brilliant. I can't. Yeah, I'm actually really glad that Valve is the one that picked up Dota 2 instead of Blizzard. Um, I know that sounds horrible. I love Blizzard, trust me. But I'm glad because Valve has had a history of taking modded games and just making them gold. Just like Counter-Strike was originally a mod. They picked that up. It's gold. Best first-person
Team
shooter in my
Fortress.
opinion. Team Fortress, originally a Quake mod. Now it's one of the best. Well, it's not really selling anymore. It's free to play, but it's one of the the most popular first-person shooters out there. Um, What else is there? Day of Defeat was another mod that they picked up, and they did it. They did it again. They just crapped gold, and they're doing that with Dota right now. They found a really big community. I believe at one point Dota 1 had more active players um, than Counter Strike 1.6, which is whoo, that's insane. I think Dota 1 is the most played mod of all time. I believe that's true.
That's that's a trend that I think we've saw decline, but I'd like to see come back. Like back when I was younger and I was playing games, the mod community was really supported. You had Epic Games supporting all the Unreal mods. You had Valve supporting all the Half-Life mods. You had ID supporting the Quake mods. They did. Uh, what else? I don't know. There was a lot of stuff. Oh, Blizzard obviously
Hmm.
supporting their mods and Battle.net and putting things up there for everybody. And we started seeing less and less of like that. Epic doesn't even make Unreal games anymore or a way to mod their game and mess with maps. I mean, I love some Gears of War, but where's my modding at, son? Where's it at? So going back to what I said about the whole AOS genre needing that in, I think that would be a big help to push the genre. It's something that needs to come back because and be supported because obviously it could make things grow. I mean, there wouldn't be a genre without modding. There wouldn't be these great games that are like some of the top played games of all time without modding.
And I think that all goes round robin back to the whole thing. Come on, guys. Whoever makes a map editor that's really good is going to get all of my support. All of it. Because I'm
Counting
actually
on you,
still
Valve.
I'm still using the Warcraft 3 editor, okay, to make my AOS. And I haven't found a good replacement yet. So get on it, guys. We actually have another question from the chat room, which I did request for, so it's not like they're going crazy. There's only two other people in here. But the question is,
Gotta
once
start
again,
somewhere.
exactly. The question is, once again, from Crime. He says, will AOS kill shooters or fighting games as esports? Um, I.
I uh
Well,
I want to say no, there's no such thing as kill. You can't kill a genre, you can't kill a game. The only thing that can kill that is the developer. Will it surpass it and like overshadow it? Uh I hate to say this, but yes, and because of what you were talking about in League of Legends, it has that lower barrier of entry. You can play and be decent at it without being great. If you try to get into the fighting game community, esports, and you're not already great, you're not getting anywhere. Same with first-person shooter. If you are not fast and great at Twitch-based combat, and basically if you don't play on the PC, because it's faster, mouse and keyboard's always faster. But if you're playing with other people on console, it's different. But those have a higher barrier of entry. If I go load up Battlefield 3 and try to jump in with some of the you know higher tiered players, I am going to get wrecked and not get anything done. If I go play League of Legends and try to jump in with some of the higher tiered players, I'm going to get wrecked, but I have more of a chance to win.
and then again,
So
you probably won't be playing against high tier characters with the good matchmaking, you know?
that's true also. And the fact, I think it's that lower barrier of entry and just the more casual. They give you the casual option, so it's going to make it be more popular than those two genres, but nothing can kill it. And those two genres, I think, are actually going to benefit from each other and the AOS genre because esports growing in general is going to help other esports. If, Dota becomes really huge and everybody's hearing this term esports and they're checking it out, well, when you Google esports, you're not just going to get Dota news. You're going to get stuff about Battlefield, about Modern Warfare, about Street Fighter, all these games too. So you're you're really promoting the entire esports community there. Uh, it's inevitable that one's going to be on top and more popular than the others, but they won't kill each other. No, there's
Well, I have to agree with you. I pretty much in everything you just said, but I think the whole question is not really it's not really the same for either of those genres. Although I agree that you can't kill a game, the only people that can kill a game are the developers. The shooter genre and the fighting genre, when esports is concerned, are really different. Because I don't know if I'm totally wrong here, but it seems kind of like the shooting esport or shooting as an esport, FPS as an esport, is kind of on the decline. I know that Halo isn't played as much on a competitive level, and I know that after what is it, Modern Warfare 2, the whole Modern Warfare series, although it's really popular, it's not as much of a competitive esport as say Modern Warfare 1, or Unreal, or CS 1.6, or even CS Source, which is iffy. But and I think the fighting game genre is actually doing the complete opposite, with stuff like Cross Assault and with stuff like Evo every year in Las Vegas. It's kind of on the rise. There really wasn't that much when it comes to esports in the fighting game community. They were kind of an underground, tight knit group. But now that people like Justin Wong and people like Daigo Umahara and people like Tokido are all getting supported and sponsored, that's really going to skyrocket them. Will the AOS genre kill them? Obviously no, but will they dominate them in the esports scene? Yes, they already are. Like League of Legends is already dominating pretty much everything but StarCraft 2.
I have something I forgot to mention in my last little rant there. Another reason I think the AOS genre is going to overshadow those genres is because, okay, with the first person shooter esports genre right now, Modern Warfare 3 comes out, you play that. Okay, when the next game comes out, you're moving on to that game. Modern Warfare 3 is not in it anymore.
Yeah.
Next game comes out, you're moving on to that game. That's not in it anymore. Unfortunately, that's the same thing with the fighting game community too. You're constantly switching games, but with these AOS type games, we have more and more coming out nowadays, but they're not sequels and everybody's switching over to the next one. I mean, how
Yeah.
long have people been playing Dota for? As long the
Like
game
eight
can keep
years.
being updated, it can keep being updated and keep being supported, and it'll grow as a game that way. I mean, looking at you have to look at AOS as like MMOs, like for example, World of Warcraft. Okay, that game, no one moved on from that to World of Warcraft 2 or World of Warcraft 3. They just kept expanding the game, adding things to it, changing the game completely and making it better. And they could do that with these AOS type games. And until they start doing that with these fighting games and these first person shooters, coming up with more things like Team Fortress 2, making that the focus of the esports of those genres, they're going to lag behind because everybody's going to have to jump from game to game to game. They're always going to have to buy this new game, and not everybody's going to be able to get that new game right away, so you're splitting your community.
And I think that's definitely true, and I think that definitely does kind of contribute. And I think that's why games like Street Fighter 4 were so popular, because although it only technically had like a 2 to 3 year lifespan, Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4 came out, and although that was technically a new game, people who already had it, it was only like it was at a discounted price, and it was pretty much fundamentally the same game. It was, you know what I mean, that you weren't learning new like Ryu still does Hadouken. Like it was pretty much the same game with additions. And so people who already played characters didn't have to transition all that much. And then when Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition came out, same thing. And Arcade Edition 2012, the same thing. Fighting games are starting actually to adopt a similar thing to the AOS. They're more like patches than they are brand new games, which I really do like. I think that's a good idea. That's what other game genres need to adopt.
Yeah, I would love to see like a Battlefield multiplayer edition. You buy this game and it's nothing but the multiplayer, and since you're online, they update it, they keep it updated. They might add new guns, they might add new vehicles, new maps, somewhere down the line, maybe upgrade the graphics if they have to. They keep it updated that way, but it's still the same game. You don't have to go out and buy Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 5. You have that game. I would love to see that.
I completely agree with you, and I think once Counter Strike Go comes out, that will probably be the go to game for the first person esports genre. And I think once Street Fighter 5 comes out, because the new Street Fighter versus Tekken, although it's a good game, I hear it's not really like conducive to everyone playing it. Once that comes out, then they'll both have solid games to ride on for a long time. But what we really need to work on is kind of not necessarily not looking at other games in the AOS genre, but we need to stop creating new ones because I think we already have enough as it is. We have Heroes of Newerth, which is kind of like Dota, but they can work, they can coexist, I believe. We have Heroes of Newerth, we have Dota 2, we have League of Legends, and we have Bloodline Champions. That's really all we need. We don't need to separate the community anymore. But thank you so much for your viewer questions today. It was wonderful. I really appreciate you guys showing up. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can come check us out live every Monday at 10 p.m. EST, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time, at www.twitch.tv/theAOStation. And if you want to check out things between our shows, every day, usually, I post some articles or links to videos on AoStation.com, which is our main website. Soon we'll have a live stream embedded into the website, so you don't even have to go to Twitch. But before that, you can just check us out on Twitch. You can also send in your viewer questions at aosstation@gmail.com, and we will respond to them on the show. Or you can come to the chat room during our live show and ask them, like our man Crime here did. And if you want
to...
Thank you so much. And if you want to see what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, see what I'm doing specifically, you can follow me at @PandaBanana on Twitter. You can also like me on Facebook at PandaBanana as well. And you can follow Mr. 7-Bit Brian here on Twitter at 7-Bit Brian, and he's going to start up his new series. Do you have a name for it yet, Brian?
I do have a name for it. It's called Gaming Adventures.
Gaming Adventures. And is that going to be on YouTube or on Twitch?
That's going to be on both.
Go ahead and plug them.
Gaming Adventures. There is no Twitch yet. On the YouTube, it's Gaming Adventures on YouTube.com.
Okay, well...
I'm still working on the website and getting everything worked out, but the first episode should go live in next week.
Okay, well, you should go check
Hopefully.
him out. Support the community.
Just follow my Twitter.
Exactly. We do a lot of stuff in the community. We try to help each other out. And if you're interested in just hanging out with us, I do post on Twitter if I just want to play a game and I want some people to play with me. Not that I'm special or anything, just in case you want to hang out. And that's pretty much it for today. Thank you so much, guys, for coming to the live show. We really appreciate it. And besides that, that's it, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you for watching.